Alright, so we're in a situation where we're having issues with our audio. Now, we've tested it multiple times, we're not getting any audio out. So what we need to first identify is that, are you working on a desktop or are you working on a laptop? So on a laptop, what you'll have is you'll have different keys that we call hotkeys. The essential key that you'll need to understand and know where it's located is towards the bottom, and it's called the function key. The function key you typically use in tandem with your F keys that ranges from F1 to F2 will typically enable different functionalities depending on the symbols that are located underneath your F keys. So there's one that shows maybe a music symbol with a plus sign, and that typically indicates sound going up, sound going down. So you want to locate that sound key that typically looks like a speaker, but it has a circle with a line going across it, and that's going to be your mute function or your mute key. And what we want to do is hit function and then find the corresponding F key, and then see if that enables sound. If that doesn't work, you have the ability to just click on that sound and just toggle it, try to swing it up and down, and then you'll see audio return back. And that's typically if you've accidentally hit your function key and that key that corresponds to muting the actual audio from your machine. That will typically resolve that issue. Now, say you've tried both of those things and you're still not getting audio. What we want to do now is grab your mouse, we want to right click, and we want to open the volume mixer. If you've right clicked and you didn't see that pop up, these options, you didn't right click. So try the other right click and then try to open the volume mixer. Once you open the volume mixer, you'll see that there are multiple applications using your output or your speaker, and you'll see all of them listed here. So what you want to try and do is see if any of these are muted. So I can mute these individually. So it might be a situation you're streaming music, you're watching a video, you go on a web browser and you accidentally tapped the mute key or you turned off the audio, and it will show audio disabled here. What you can do is unmute it by clicking there, or you can also toggle what we call the level there. Looks like that will return audio. Now, knowing that, you can mute audio for individual devices, but say that still doesn't resolve your issue. What you can find over here is your different devices. So these are all the options as far as output for audio that your machine has. So if you're on a desktop or a laptop, you might have an external speaker, you might have a Bluetooth speaker, you might have headphones plugged in. So what you would want to do is you would want to locate those devices here. Typically, towards the end, you'll say something like a streaming microphone. It might say a headphone jack, or it might say a Bluetooth speaker. You would want to double click on that device and ensure that output comes out of it. So sometimes you may have plugged in a device, the PC didn't recognize it. So since the PC didn't recognize, your operating system isn't using it. So you just want to manually force audio to come out of that select device. If you still are experiencing issues after troubleshooting all those things, we're going to get into a little bit more of advanced technique. We're going to go through our control panel, and we want to go through device manager. So let's go ahead and type in control panel. Pulls up control panel. Then we want to go to our hardware and sound. And now we want to find our device manager. So whenever you see this blue and yellow shield, that just means that it's going to require administrator access. So if you're not administrator on your machine, you might have trouble accessing this function, and it might make you stop from here on out and go ahead and have you contact your tech support. But if you have admin access, what you can do is go into the device manager, and what you'll have is a list of drivers for each device. What a driver is a translation package between the hardware or the peripheral you're introducing to the hardware inside of your computer. So when you purchase your computer, it has a set hardware, and it has all that information and understands about all the hardware inside your computer. But what happens is typically you can purchase an external speaker, a Bluetooth speaker, or a headphone jack. We would call that an external device or peripheral. So with that peripheral being added onto your desktop, what it will need is a driver to understand the language that that individual device is speaking. So typically you'll get a disk, might get a file to download and install. And if you look on here and you see the option for audio inputs and outputs, and what we're going to look for is a yellow exclamation mark. What that means is that driver is either not functioning correctly or it's out of date. So what we want to do, if we don't see that when we first open the device manager, we can scan for hardware changes. We'll give Windows a second to scan, see if there's any changes. Scanning. She's taking a while. She didn't find anything, so cool. So what that means is that we can go into our action listing and we can have the ability to check for help to see if there's anything that we can do to resolve it. A lot of the times you might see your device show up under other devices, and it might be kind of a device with either a question mark or a yellow exclamation mark. But in this case, if we have a situation where we don't see that device, we might want to check on a few things. Is it plugged in correctly? Does it have power going to that device so that it shows up on our machine? We also want to make sure that the port that we're connected to is a functioning port. So whether it's plugged in USB or through a headphone jack, we want to make sure those devices are functioning correctly. After we've tested that, we can go ahead and update the driver. We have two options. We can search automatically, and that's just you saying, Windows, do your thing. You figure out how to get this thing working. You have also the ability to download the driver from the manufacturer website. You need to make sure that you remember what file folder you saved that manufacturer's driver from. You can browse your computer driver's location, and you can double click on that driver. Make sure you're aware of what kind of system you're running. Typically on Windows, you can have either 32-bit or 64-bit operating system. And if you ever needed help figuring that out, you can just go quickly by hitting the Windows key, and it's going to be called the pause break key, and that will actually pull up your driver information. And so of course I can tell the basic information about my machine from here. I can tell that I'm running on a 64-bit operating system, so the driver that I install will be a 64-bit system. Now, knowing this, even though I have a 64-bit system, I still might need to download the 32-bit driver, because that 32-bit driver may be accessible for operating systems, 32-bit system might be needed for programs that use that 32-bit driver. So even though I'm probably only using 64-bit on most of my applications, I might be running an application that's 32-bit. You'll need access to that 32-bit driver. But after you get all this information, and if you still are having issues with your sound, you need to go ahead and get tech support involved. You went through above and beyond the Call of Duty to try and get your machine working without bothering your tech support. And so they will be impressed with these troubleshooting steps you've taken. So go ahead and give them a call to see if we can't get that problem resolved for you. But if you found this video helpful, you can always like, subscribe, and what means way more to me than anything else is that you share this, because you might not know who this will help. So make sure that you are generous with that share button and share it to any social media platform that you have.